Billionaire discovers a little girl's empty lunchbox. What he uncovered inside changed lives forever. Ethan Caldwell stepped off the private jet, the chill of the Appalachian air hitting him like a wave. He traded his suit for jeans and a jacket, hoping to bridge the vast gap between his billion-dollar empire and the small hometown that had shaped him. It felt surreal. Even the faded school building looked so much smaller than he remembered. Nestled among the mountains, it was a place bursting with warmth. Yet shadows of neglect whispered from its walls as he wandered through the worn-down cafeteria. Nostalgia washed over him like a bittersweet tide. Dusted tables echoed laughter now long gone, but Ethan felt nothing but loneliness amidst scraps of his childhood. Eyes scanning the room, he caught a glimpse of something out of place. Tucked away on a dusty shelf, an empty lunchbox beckoned him. He approached, curiosity blooming in his heart. Opening the lunchbox, a flood of crinkled papers spilled out, haphazardly folded. Each note was a plea from a little girl named Lily, a name that felt both innocent and achingly distant. One read, "I hope my lunch is warm today. I wish I had more crayons to color." Another whispered, "Can someone please help my mom? She's tired." Each line pierced through his polished exterior, slicing into the raw memories of his own childhood, where his parents worked late nights, sacrificing everything for his dreams. A tightness gripped his chest. Tears threatened to spill as he recalled the sacrifices made in silence. They had fought to provide, but life had always been a battle. Inspired by Lily's spirit, a fire ignited within him. He was determined to change the lives of families like hers. Plans formed in his mind as he envisioned a better future: food drives, scholarships, community programs. But as he introduced his initiatives at the town hall, the warmth he hoped to receive turned cold. Skepticism bubbled to the surface, lined with whispers of corporate charity. Faces hardened, and judgment filled the air. "What do you know about our struggles?" someone snapped. The town turned its back, their resentment forming an emotional chasm. Ethan's resolve began to falter, but then news struck. The local factory, the lifeblood of the community, teetered on the brink of closure. Panic surged through him. He had to act. The weight of the townsfolk's expectations bore down like lead. As he raced against time, his privilege became a double-edged sword. Complexities tangled in his mind. Could he really help when they viewed him as the enemy? Caught in this storm of doubt, he faced a harrowing question. Push for progress or step away? The clock ticked ominously towards the pivotal town meeting, where his plans would be scrutinized. Every heart beating around him carried disbelief, but maybe a flicker of hope remained. His connection to Lily and her hopeful notes clung to his soul. As he gathered himself, he wondered, could he become the bridge that united this fractured town? Or would he be the man they feared? The tension mounted, hearts clenched in uncertainty, as the final moments approached. Would he reveal his plans and risk everything? Or would he walk away, leaving behind an empty lunchbox, whispers of hope, and a fragmented community? Ethan stood at the town hall's entrance, the weight of expectations pressing down harder than the chill in the air. Each heavy step felt like walking through molasses. Townspeople gathered, murmurs filling the hall, their skepticism palpable. He could almost smell the distrust, thick and unyielding. It was a far cry from the comfort of board meetings in glass towers here. Every eye seemed to question him, searching for a facade to crack. That he took a deep breath, recalling the laughter that once resonated here, the dreams shared over lunch in that same cafeteria. This place had once been a lively hub, teeming with hopes and aspirations. Could he reignite that spark? The lunchbox filled with Lily's notes weighed in his hand, a reminder of the purest forms of hope. It wasn't about him. It was about her and the countless others who felt forgotten. Ethan forced himself to smile as he stepped up to the podium. The feeling of vulnerability crept in, his heart racing. "Thank you all for being here," he began, voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. "I know that I'm not from here anymore, but I want to help." The crowd shifted, and he could see eyes narrow and lips purse. A man in the back, arms crossed defiantly, scoffed. Help? Or just another billionaire wanting to feel good about himself? A wave of uncomfortable laughter swept through the crowd, and Ethan felt his cheeks heat. I understand why you're skeptical, he continued, desperation tinging his tone. But I was once like you. I know what it's like to struggle. I've seen my parents work themselves to the bone. My heart aches for those like Lily who are just trying to make it day by day. Suddenly, an older woman stepped forward, her voice cracking as she spoke. You don't know our struggles, Ethan. You think throwing money at us will solve everything? You don't live here. You don't know how hard it is to put food on the table. The room nodded in agreement, a chorus of shared experiences that pierced through his courage. He felt the urge to retreat, to run back to the comforts of his life, but the memory of Lily's notes pushed him. The vision of a community thriving together clouded his mind. You're right. I don't know the depths of your pain, but I want to listen, to learn, and to help. This community is special. Can shine again. Together. Whispers grew loud, exchanging doubts and fears. But one voice cut through the clutter. Lily's unheard plea echoed, urging him forward. What if we work together? His voice rose. What if we create something that can change this for all of us? We can save the factory. We can create job programs. It's time for all of us to invest. Together. The room fell silent. Ethan's heart raced. It felt like their answers would come from his proposal. Would they see him for who he was trying to be, instead of what he was? He could sense the shift as some faces began seeking hope. Here's what I'm proposing. As he outlined his plans for the factory, he felt a glimmer of acceptance. It was fragile, but it was there, a chance to mend bridges. But just as his words seemed to find a foothold, a sharp voice pierced through the air. And what's your real plan, Ethan? You're just a stranger trying to play savior. What do you want? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Ethan's mind raced. What was the real reason he was here? The answer felt complicated, tangled in the threads of his own past. It held the promise of change, but also the risk of exposure. As the eyes of the room bore into him, waiting expectantly, he took a breath and prepared to face the truth. Would he reveal the depths of his own battles? Or would he hold back the depths of his heart? The moment of decision loomed just ahead, both terrifying and full of possibility. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. The question echoed inside him. What did he really want? Did he have the courage to show these people the vulnerable parts of himself? He let his gaze drift across the room, landing on faces etched with resentment, weariness, and hidden hope. No one wants a savior, he finally said, his voice softer now. Not from the outside. Not from someone who doesn't understand. Feeling the weight of his own words, he paused, searching for clarity. But maybe what you really want is a partner. Someone who cares about what happens here. About you. A tense silence enveloped the room. Ethan could feel the collective breath of the crowd, a hesitant sigh teetering on the edge of their unspoken fears. The man who had first scoffed leaned forward, curiosity mixing with his disdain. And how can we trust you? He shot back, defiance still lingering in his tone. You're offering empty promises. What makes you different from those who come before you? Ethan swallowed hard. Because I don't want to just be here for a photo op or a headline. I want to be here for the long haul. I want to work alongside you. That's what I've wanted since the moment I found Lily's lunchbox. It's not just about projects and investments for me, it's about real connections. Suddenly, Ethan recalled the notes in the box. Sketches, drawings of a vibrant town, of children playing, families thriving. It was a call to action filled with innocence and dreams. I brought what I could, ideas, resources, he continued, picking up momentum. But I need your stories. I need to understand what it means to live and fight here. I believe that together we can turn this around, not just for Lily, but for each and every one of you. You know better than I do what this place needs. The older woman who had challenged him before watched him closely, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. And if we give you those stories, what will you do with them? Tell us the truth. Do you have any idea what we've been through? The lump in Ethan's throat grew heavier. I don't, but I want to. I want to hear about the layoffs, the families torn apart by hard choices. I want to help create pathways for jobs that don't just fade away when the sun sets. He implored, desperation creeping into his voice. If you let me in, if you let me listen, I promise I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with you. I'm not here to swoop in and save the day. I'm here to learn how we can save it together. An unexpected wave of emotion surged within him. He scanned the room for any flicker of understanding, any sign that his words were landing. One elderly man's brow unfurrowed, sparking a glimmer of hope throughout the crowd. Then silence fell once more, thickening the air with anticipation. Ethan held his breath. Was he getting through? Would they embrace the notion of collaboration? Finally, the older woman nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. Listening is a start, she said, and there was a softer warmth in her tone now. Ethan's heart leapt at the small victory, tiny but incredibly significant. He was beginning to pierce the facade of skepticism. Let us try, he said, feeling a newfound surge of determination. Let us start with coffee and stories. You can tell me about your dreams. As the tension slowly eased, a few friendly faces began to nod. Encouragement began to ripple through the hall. But just as hope illuminated the atmosphere, a figure stepped from the shadows, an unexpected interruption that would test Ethan's burgeoning connection with the community. Who are you really, Ethan? And what do you truly want? The interruption felt sharper, filled with deeper implications now more than ever. Ethan needed to confront not only his past but the vulnerabilities that defined him. He took a deep breath as he prepared to answer. Would he find the strength to face the truth? Or would the weight of his secrets threaten the fragile bond he had begun to build? Ethan felt the room shift around him, the air thick with uncertainty. The voice that had emerged from the shadows belonged to a tall man with a wide stance and intense eyes, radiating an energy that commanded attention. There was no hiding from him, not now. I'm here because I believe we can make a difference, Ethan replied, his voice steadier than he felt. I want to connect. I've seen too much pain wrapped up in silence, and I want to help change that. The man leaned back, arms crossed, studying Ethan as if trying to dissect him. Is that what you think you can do? Dissect us? You're not some herald of hope, kid. You're a billionaire with a conscience. Get real. What do you expect to find in our wounds? A chance to save face? Ethan's pulse quickened. He could sense the challenge simmering in the air, like a pot about to boil over. No, I don't want to save face. I want to save hearts, he said, a flicker of defiance in his tone. I want to get to know you, your struggles, your stories. I understand it's a risk to trust me, but what does it hurt to try? As he spoke, he caught sight of the older woman who had shown the first hint of acceptance. She seemed to deliberate over the words. Silently, Ethan sent her a plea for support. We've been let down before, haven't we? She interjected softly. The room nodded, their faces shadowed with old memories. What happens if we open up and you leave? It'll just be more hurt piled on top of what we already carry. The man's eyes flared in response. Right. You could be just another pretty face down at the local bar telling stories about how you used to know us. We've had enough of that. Ethan's heart sank a little. He knew the accusation rang true for many. But did that mean he should give up? No, not now. Not when his path, however uncertain, felt more aligned than ever. I get it. I really do, he said, channeling sincerity into every word. But I'm here for something deeper. I've done my part of the world out there, investments, empty gestures. They never filled the spaces I wanted them to. Each click of the camera shutter just reminded me how removed I was. Maybe that's why I'm drawn here, to listen and be part of the real stories. The silence that followed rang heavy, interrupted only by their breaths mingling in the charged atmosphere. Ethan scanned the group again, searching for anyone to see beyond his position. Then, almost begrudgingly, the skeptical man let out a brief, sarcastic laugh. So what? You think you'll win us over with some coffee chats? Just be some listening ear? It's not that simple. Ethan nodded, acknowledging the challenge. You're right. It's not that simple. But every monumental change starts with a single conversation. Doesn't it? May I have that chance? Not as a savior, but as a friend willing to listen. The older woman's gaze softened. We've fought hard here. We won't just give our stories away. You should know that. Ethan's breath hitched. I wouldn't expect anything less. But I'd still like to try. If nothing else, it could help us find a way forward. Together. In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted. A ripple of emotional agreement surged through some members of the group, reflecting the tentative spark of hope that had begun to take root in their hearts. But just as it looked like they might lean in, the man at the forefront pushed back. Okay. But let us not forget one thing: if you breathe our air, you better be prepared for the truth. We don't sugarcoat our lives. Are you ready for that? Ethan's resolve crystallized at the challenge. Absolutely. I'm ready for every bit of it. Suddenly, laughter erupted from the back of the room, breaking the tension like a soft breeze over a storm. A young girl, Lily's age, stood there wide-eyed. I want to tell you about my dog, Max, she piped up, smiling. The atmosphere shifted again, lightening as the innocent mention of a puppy brought fleeting joy. But Ethan knew the stakes were higher than a simple conversation. As smiles flickered and stories began to emerge, something darker brushed the edges of the room. Unresolved truths lay hidden beneath the laughter, waiting for the right moment to surface. And Ethan felt that in uncovering these lives, he might not only change theirs but also find the answers he desperately sought for himself. As laughter echoed around and the first stories unfolded, a sense of foreboding settled. Ethan felt the weight of unspoken histories pressing on him. Would they welcome the truths he was about to stumble upon? Or would the revelations grip him with fear? The inquiry loomed: what hidden truths were waiting, and would he be able to handle them? Ethan leaned in as the girl's voice lit up the room. Max is the best dog ever. He can do this trick where he jumps through hoops. Her enthusiasm was contagious. A brief moment of escape from the heaviness that had settled like fog over the group. As she described her dog's antics, laughter bubbled to the surface. For a heartbeat, the room felt lighter. But in the ebb of laughter, Ethan felt the tug of reality. Moments like these were rare within these walls. They were the stories people clung to, hiding the pain that shaped them. And he knew as the young girl spoke, the laughter could only mask the deeper truths for so long. Tell me more about Max, Ethan encouraged, hoping to draw others in. The girl beamed at the attention, and around him, faces began to shift, curiosity breaking the surface of suspicion. As she animatedly shared stories, Ethan caught glimpses of softening expressions. Some in the group leaned forward, if only just a bit, drawn into a moment of shared joy. He noticed the older woman now smiling faintly, her grip on the chair loosening. Could this be the first step? But then the skeptical man scoffed, folding his arms tighter. Cute story, but we all have our Maxes, don't we? And most of us have lost them too. There was a harshness to his tone that cut through the warmth. Ethan felt the atmosphere shift again, like a dark cloud rolling in after a sunny day. I guess we have our scars, he replied, choosing his words carefully. But sometimes sharing even the good moments can be the bridge we need to connect. The man's eyes narrowed, but he didn't push back. Instead, a silence wrapped around the room, punctured only by the girl's chatter. It occurred to Ethan that they might not only need someone to listen but also a voice to break down the protective barriers they had built. Do you all have pets? Ethan asked, looking around. They can teach us a lot about love and loss. A few murmurs floated through the group. A man with graying hair spoke up, voice low yet steady. I had a cat, named Sasha. She was my world until... His gaze dropped, and a hush wrapped around him. The weight of the unspoken engulfed the room. What happened? Ethan gently prodded, sensing an opening. The man hesitated, and just as he was about to respond, a woman chimed in. She lost her to cancer. It hit her hard. The emotional thread knit tighter between them all. Ethan felt a responsibility. I think that pain is a part of all our lives, that loss can connect us in ways we don't even realize, he shared, heart racing. But it doesn't have to define us. Easy for you to say, the man countered sharply. You have everything. What do you know about losing someone? The room held its breath, waiting for Ethan's response. He felt the heat rise in his chest, heat that urged him to retreat. But this wasn't the time. You're right, he admitted, struggling to keep the tremor from his voice. But I know what it's like to feel lost. alone. I've battled my own demons even while surrounded by wealth. It's a different kind of emptiness. For a moment, Ethan could see the comprehension flash across a few faces. Behind the skepticism, he sensed a willingness to dig deeper, to share more than just surface-level stories. Then, the woman with the soft gaze leaned forward. Everyone here has faced something, but we're not used to talking about the ugly parts. Maybe that's where the real connections are. Ethan's pulse quickened. This was it. Exactly. It's not just about listening to the sunny stories. It's about sharing the shadows too. That's how healing can begin. As people began to nod, a silent pact appeared to form in the air. Whatever walls had held them back were beginning to show cracks. But just as hope flared up, a cold draft swept through the room, a reminder of vulnerabilities that lay unspoken. Ethan felt uneasy. What if sharing those truths comes at a cost? He wondered, his heart beating faster. Would healing require them to confront not just stories but the very essence of their pain? A sudden clattering drew everyone's attention to the doorway. A figure shimmered in the late afternoon light. It was a woman with a weary expression, holding an old lunchbox. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice thick with mistrust. The air grew heavy with questions. Who was she? What did she carry with her? Ethan felt a chill run down his spine as he weighed the possibilities. The last thing he wanted was for their fragile moment of openness to shatter. He knew they were standing at a precipice. Would this newcomer push them into deeper vulnerability or close them off again completely? And just as the group turned toward the stranger, Ethan realized this was only the beginning of the truth. What would the lunchbox reveal, and how would it change the fabric of their gathering? The woman stepped further into the room, the lunchbox clutched tightly to her chest. Her brows furrowed, scanning the faces around her. Ethan sensed the tension. In a place where every moment was charged with unspoken pain, her distrust felt like a spark to dry kindling. "Can we help you?" he asked, voice steady but gentle. Trying to ease her suspicion, she hesitated, her eyes darting to the girl who had brightened the room moments ago. I heard laughter. I thought maybe." She stopped, her throat constricting as if the words were caught on something painful. Ethan exchanged glances with the group. "We're just sharing stories," he said softly. "You're welcome to join us." The woman relaxed slightly, though still clutching the lunchbox. "Mandy loved to bring this for her lunch. But it's empty now." Her voice cracked, and with each word, a depth of sorrow surfaced. The room held its breath, drawn into her confession as if the collective pain was begging to be released. "Did she leave?" A voice piped up from the back, a hint of alarm in it. The newcomer nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I didn't think it would come to this, losing my little girl." Her grip on the lunchbox tightened. "I couldn't bear to throw it away. Feels like a part of her." The girl who'd spoken about Max reached out instinctively, her innocent heart sensing the shift in emotion. As if entirely unaware of the heaviness, she chirped, "You can bring it back. Max would love to play with it." Her offer stood brightly against the backdrop of grief, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Ethan felt a swell of hope and despair battling within him. He could see the pain in the woman's eyes, the ache of loss. But he also saw the flicker of something more, a chance for connection, a possibility of healing. This lunchbox, it holds memories, doesn't it? It can remind us of all the love that came with it. The woman's gaze softened, even as she battled her feelings. "Yes. But it's also a reminder of what I don't have anymore. Maybe there's a possibility to create new memories?" Ethan ventured carefully. Sharing this moment could turn the whispers of anguish into stories of resilience. A quiet enveloped the room, thoughts igniting in the minds of the others, wrestling with acceptance and remembrance. The man whose cat had passed leaned forward. "I didn't think I would bring Sasha back into conversation, but she was more than a pet. She filled our days with joy. Perhaps talking about those we've lost can help us find our way back." One by one, faces shifted from uncertainty to contemplation. A flicker of understanding crossed the group as they processed the invitation to share. The older woman, the one who had loosened her grip moments earlier, finally spoke under her breath. Perhaps we can share their stories. What they meant to us, even if it hurts. Ethan felt the shadows lifting, tentative but palpable. I think talking about them will bring their spirit back here with us. Not to erase the sadness, but to share the joy they brought into our lives. Silence settled, and then, from the back, the skeptical man who had folded his arms from the beginning spoke up. Maybe it's time to let go of the anger I've held on to. I still miss my Max, but like this woman, I can share what he meant to me without forgetting him. A few people exchanged glances, nodding slowly. They began to encourage the woman with the lunchbox, inviting her to share more, to tell them about Mandy and the love that had sparked from such a simple object. Ethan stood in the center, watching the transformation. A fragile thread of hope wove its way through the room. What had once felt like heavy chains began to glimmer with the possibility of freedom. But just as the stories started to flow, the old lunchbox suddenly slipped from the woman's grasp, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Everyone gasped, a collective intake of breath echoing in the space. The lunchbox opened slightly, revealing just a glimpse of its contents. Ethan's heart raced. What else lay buried within? What else had yet to come forth? From the shadows? He knelt to examine it, the silence suffocating yet charged with anticipation. What would the lunchbox reveal about love, loss, and the connections waiting to be made? Would they find unexpected truth in that hollow space? Or would it drive them further apart? Ethan felt the weight of the moment press around him. He knelt, hands hovering over the lunchbox as if it were a fragile artifact. Time seemed to stretch, elongating the seconds into an eternity. The whispers of the group faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of his heart. He took a breath, steeling himself, and lifted the lid the rest of the way. Inside, nestled between crumpled pieces of paper and a hastily drawn picture of stick figures, lay an old, crumbled note. He pulled it carefully, feeling the texture of worn edges under his fingertips, and opened it slowly. The words came into focus, a childish scrawl spilling onto the page. "I love you, Mommy. You are the best." A wave of emotion washed over the room as the woman gasped, her eyes widening, filled with recognition and pain. That's Mandy's handwriting," she exclaimed, her voice breaking. She reached forward, as if drawn by an invisible thread, and took the note from Ethan's hands. Surrounded by silence, the room held its breath. The note, once a simple expression of love, felt monumental now, like a beacon of lost innocence. "Mandy used to leave me little notes like this," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "When she would pack her lunch, she wanted to remind me of her love. I thought I lost all of those." Ethan felt a pulse of unity fill the air, an understanding dawning on the group. One by one, they began to share their own stories and artifacts, prompted by the yielding atmosphere. The older woman, her voice a shaky whisper, recounted a similar piece of her past. "I kept a drawing my son made for me before he left for college. I never realized how holding onto those memories could bring us together." Ethan raised his head and scanned the group, now infused with a determination to break the silence of their individual grief. "We didn't just lose something. We can still carry their warmth with us. Let us build and exchange, share what they meant, what they left behind." Encouraged, the man who had spoken about Max stepped forward. "I have a collar, Sasha's collar packed away." He paused, looking around to gauge the reaction of the group. "I thought it would stay hidden forever. Maybe it's time for me to share her with all of you." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, faces lit with a tentative hope, sharing glances that promised understanding. The old weight of grief dulled, revealing soft edges of shared history and tenderness. As the stories poured out, Ethan stood a little taller. This wasn't just a gathering. It was evolving into a tapestry of shared memories. There was courage in vulnerability, and soon everyone had something precious to offer in time. The lunchbox that had once felt so heavy with loss became a vessel of light. Each story shared formed a thread that intertwined their heartaches, knitting them closer as a community. But just as the stories mingled in the air like whispers of spring breeze, A loud noise interrupted a crash from the back of the room, sent everyone spinning around. Ethan's stomach dropped. What was that? Panic laced his voice. All eyes turned to the dark corner where shadows loomed, uncertainty creeping back in. Suddenly, they weren't just sharing memories anymore. They were faced with an unforeseen challenge. What had intruded on their fragile moment? Would it shatter the newfound bonds or lead them to an even deeper revelation? The room was suffocating with tension. Ethan could feel the heaviness of the silence, punctuated only by frayed whispers and the shuffle of nervous feet. He instinctively stepped back, trying to see what had caused the commotion. In the dim light, shadows twisted and turned, and it was hard to make sense of what was happening. A young girl, no older than 8, stood at the edge of the group, her eyes wide and terrified. She clutched a bigger lunchbox, bright pink with princess stickers, and nearby, a chair lay toppled over. "Heather," a woman cried out, stepping forward. "What are you doing here?" The panic in her voice was palpable, echoing through the room. "I heard you all talking. I thought maybe I could find something too," the girl stammered, her voice trembling as she glanced around at the adults. Ethan's heart twisted. Suddenly, the feeling of shared grief shifted, colliding with the innocent curiosity of a child. "You wanted to share?" he asked gently, kneeling down to her level. "What's in your lunchbox?" Heather took a deep breath. Slowly, she opened the box. Inside were some half-eaten sandwiches, a thermos of juice, and a few crumpled drawings. Then she pulled out a photo. It was old and faded, but the image was clear enough, a family portrait, with a man who looked strikingly familiar. "That's my dad," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He said we would go on a picnic, but he never came home." Silence enveloped the room again, but this time it was filled with understanding and compassion. The adults, who had spent the last few moments sharing their grief, now faced this little girl, a living reminder of loss. A loss that reshaped everyone who saw it, who felt the weight of it. Ethan felt warm tears prick at the corners of his eyes. "You're so brave, Heather," he said, his voice steady. "You came here to find a connection. That shows so much strength." Heather glanced around, her eyes searching each adult's face. They weren't distant figures anymore. They were like pieces of a puzzle she hoped could help fill the empty spaces in her heart. One of the older women approached, kneeling down beside her. "Amanda, I know how you feel," she said softly, tears shimmering in her eyes. "When we lose someone, we feel lost too. But we can hold on to memories together." The group slowly gathered around, forming a protective circle. One by one, they began sharing their own losses once more, this time with Heather listening intently. The stories flowed, their heartbreaks intertwining with her innocence, awakening something profound in each of them. As the exchange continued, Ethan felt a shift. It wasn't just about their loss. It was about connections they could create with one another. For Heather, he could sense the strength of their collective pain becoming a foundation for new hope. But then, out of nowhere, a crack of thunder reverberated through the room, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Eyes widened as everyone looked toward the window, where storm clouds had suddenly gathered. A storm was coming, both outside and inside, and the air felt electric with unspoken words. What did the storm hold? Would it push them apart or draw them even closer, forcing them to confront the things left unspoken? Ethan took a deep breath, grounding himself. This moment, a little girl looking for belonging in the storm of grief, felt pivotal. Where would it lead him? Ethan felt the weight of anticipation hang thick in the air. The storm rumbled outside, echoing the emotions swirling within the room. He looked at Heather, her big eyes reflecting fear and hope at once. This child, despite her turmoil, represented a new beginning for everyone present. "We have to keep talking," he said, turning back to the group, feeling a sense of urgency. "If the storm is gonna hit hard, we need to face it together, not alone." The light flickered again, a stray gust rattling the windows. People nodded, faces softening with a shared determination. Anna rubbed Heather's shoulder gently. "Do you want to share a memory with us, Heather?" The girl scrunched her brow, her little fingers fidgeting with the lunchbox's lid. I remember my dad telling stories about knights and dragons. She began hesitantly. He always said that courage comes from love. Ethan could see everyone lean in closer, resting on her words. There was such purity in the way she spoke, and for a moment, it seemed like the room brightened, the storm somehow distant, and that even the smallest person can change the course of the future. She smiled shyly. I want to be brave like him. Her words hung in the air like a melody, striking a chord within each adult, their hearts swelling with admiration for this fragile warrior. I wish I could tell him all the things I've been doing, Heather continued, her innocent wish hanging like a lifeline, like how I learned to ride my bike without training wheels. The laughter that boiled up was sweet and genuine, breaking through the tension. A man in the back cleared his throat, a smile breaking through the sorrow. He said, maybe that courage can be found in all of us. Even in the boring things like grocery shopping are gonna work. Heather's laughter rang out, and it felt like sunlight peeking through the curtain of storm. Moments like this, the ones that remind you of joy amid grief, would linger with Ethan, brewing warmth in his chest as the conversation flowed. Stories turned into laughter. The storm outside lost its grip, becoming a backdrop to the laughter echoing between them. Their pain didn't vanish, but they were woven together by new threads. Then, without warning, the lights flickered one final time before dying out, plunging everyone into darkness. Gasps filled the space, the sound of breaths drawing short, panic creeping in. We're okay, Ethan shouted, his voice steady. Just hang tight. Let us stay together. Can we light a candle? Anna asked, her voice shaky. I always have a candle. Nervously, they heard footsteps scuffling in the dark as some moved to find it. Ethan moved closer to Heather, his heart racing. The weight of uncertainty hung heavy, but it felt oddly familiar. Can I tell you a secret? He whispered. Okay, she responded, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. I'm scared too, he admitted, feeling a rush of vulnerability. But I think together we can face anything, even a storm. As he spoke, the faint flicker of a lighter glinted in the darkness, illuminating a few anxious faces. Suddenly, a soft, warm glow filled the room, the candle flame creating an intimate bubble. Everyone let out sighs of relief, and laughter softly emerged once more. The room brightened not just physically but emotionally. Ethan looked at the group and then back at Heather, whose fear had turned to wonder. In this circle of shared stories and candlelight, they were creating something new. Would they find enough strength to confront not just the storm outside but the deeper storms within? As the wind howled, Ethan felt a flicker of hope amid the chaos. Would this moment deepen their bonds, or would the shadows pull them apart again? Ethan felt the light of the candle flicker against his face, illuminating the shared space where hopes and fears entwined. The storm raged outside, but within these walls, a warmth blossomed. The flickering flame became a symbol of resilience, fighting against the shadows that loomed in their hearts. Let us keep our voices strong, he declared, looking around at the faces filled with both concern and anticipation. This is our moment to shine together. Remember what Heather said about bravery? Let us talk about our dragons. The things that scare us, but also the things that make us who we are. As if on cue, Anna stood up, her voice steadier than it had been before. I had a friend named Molly. I lost her to cancer. Everyone says I should find closure, but it's not that easy. My heart still feels heavy. A ripple of empathy coursed through the room. What if we share the memories? The skeptical man suggested, the shadow of doubt still lingering but dimming as he felt the collective energy shift. The best of them. What brought us joy? One by one, people stepped forward, each story unfolding like petals on a flower. The laughter that once felt distant returned, mixing with the sorrow, creating a rich tapestry of experiences. The man whose cat had passed spoke about his favorite memory, sharing a tale of Sasha's mischievous antics, igniting laughter from the group. Ethan found himself mesmerized, absorbing the essence of their lives, their losses, and the light in their stories. Somehow, he felt lighter, each shared weight filled with understanding which knotted their hearts closer together. This is beautiful, he murmured, a space of real connection. Then Heather squeaked, her voice bright as she stood among the adults. "Can I tell a story?" With permission granted and smiles urging her on. The little girl beamed with pride. "When I went to the park, I saw this big swing. It swung so high like a bird. And my dad said, 'Always reach for the sky, Heather.'" Her eyes shimmered with innocence and belief. The atmosphere lifted as everyone regained their spirits. Each shard of shared grief morphing into something like hope. "That's it," Anna said, her excitement mirroring that of the child. "If your dad were here, he'd be proud of you." They began to strategize, ignited by Heather's youthful spirit. What if we turn this story sharing into something bigger? A community gathering where we all celebrate our loved ones? Someone proposed, enthusiasm contrasting against the storm's fury outside. Ethan's heart swelled. "Yes, let us invite everyone. We can host a potluck, where everyone brings a dish and a memory attached to it." His voice crescendoed, passion igniting each word. "We could create a mural from all your stories, a place where all our loved ones coexist. We could finally begin healing together." The energy in the room soared, ideas sparking like fireworks. Families began to nod, inspired by visions of something tangible emerging of their histories into a shared narrative. "We can call it the memory wall," a woman announced, her eyes brightening. "A place where we can hang our notes, our memories. It'll be a living testament to those we've lost, and a celebration of what remains." Laughter bubbled through the space, and the weight felt lighter as everyone began to dream together. Even the storm outside began to ease, its ferocity fading into the background as they forged hope between them as the stories carried on. Ethan's heart brimmed with awe. The idea born from a little girl holding a lunchbox had transformed into a community's heartbeat. Each tale the thread binding them into a vibrant tapestry of resilience and love. He felt the connection deepen, warming him from the inside out. Night deepened, yet the flickering candlelight cast a warm glow over them, turning the gloom into a gentle embrace. When the gathering wrapped up, there wasn't a single eye dry. They had found a rhythm within the storm, and by the time they all decided to step outside, the rain had transformed into soft, flickering droplets that fell like whispers over them. "Let us walk together. This is only the beginning," Ethan said, stepping out with everyone. The air was fresher, tanks filling with hope as they walked side by side, embarking on a path woven with the promise of connection and healing. Ethan turned to Heather and grinned. "You're our spark, you know that?" She beamed back, her earlier fear dissolving into sheer joy. "We're going to make this place thrive," he declared, voice steady and sure. And just like that, they forged ahead into a future built on the back of shared stories, camaraderie, and unwavering bonds out of darkness. They created a resilient beacon of hope, and no longer just a billionaire amidst a community. Ethan Caldwell had become one with them, a partner in building anew, a creator of beautiful memories. The storm would pass, but the connections forged would last forever. Don't wait. You need to subscribe now to catch all the heartwarming stories ahead. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us bring more joy. Comment below with your feelings about this powerful conclusion, and share instantly with at least 5 friends who need this beautiful transformation in their lives. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.